This is dHunter bringing you another video. Today, I have some pretty bad news to share with everybody here. I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but today an announcement was dropped that in 2026 Mattel is going to get the DC license back. The Master DC license, in fact. And that could mean a lot of things. The first thought is Mattel's going to get the license, McFarlane's going to lose it, and that'll be that. But it's probably a little bit more complicated than that. I remain ever hopeful that this is not the end. As I'm sure most of you guys know, I'm a huge McFarlane fan and supporter, especially of their DC Multiverse line. I love it. I've been collecting DC figures since about 2006. I was with Mattel the whole way, and I loved the Mattel line. DC Superheroes, DC Universe Classics, DC Multiverse, even their comic line before that. It was really, really good stuff. In 2019, it was announced that McFarlane was going to get the license in 2020, and boy, they blew Mattel away immediately. Superior sculpts, superior articulation, superior scale, superior likeness, etc., etc. They didn't have these cookie-cutter bodies making every single figure look exactly the same. And like I said, I'm not a Mattel hater. I love the Mattel stuff. I have a very unique perspective on things because I collect all the DC lines. Mattel, Mezco, SH Figure Arts, Mafex, McFarlane, everything. DC Direct. I love my Batman figures. And I love my McFarlane figures. I've been collecting for almost 20 years. And collecting McFarlane stuff has been the most fun I've had this entire time. The value, the quality, it's all there. Now I know there's a ton of people out here that hate the fact that McFarlane went with 7-inch scale. And I get it. DC Universe Classics was a 6-inch scale line, but it wasn't a true 1/12 scale line. It didn't even really match up with Hasbro Marvel Legends. I collected DC Universe Classics and some Marvel Legends, and Marvel Legends was smaller than DC Universe Classics, and style-wise they didn't really fit in together. Now I do wish every single action figure line out there was the same scale and it was one huge cohesive thing, but that's just not the world we live in. We have 7-inch scale, 6-inch scale, 8-inch scale, 5-inch scale, all kind of stuff like that. Personally, I collect 6-inch and 7-inch scale. I don't get smaller than that, and I don't get larger than that. And I was totally cool with McFarlane doing 7-inch scale because I collect NECA, Diamond Select, wrestling, all kind of stuff that works with them. And I had this huge 6-inch collection, so in some ways, it was a little frustrating to sort of start over, but they were so damn good. I was hooked immediately. And like I said, I've been collecting 7-inch stuff for a long time, so I was totally cool with the scale. Now, McFarlane is not perfect at all. They do a lot of dumb stuff. They do a lot of really obvious, glaring errors, stuff that they already have better parts for, blah, 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 blah. I can complain all day, but that's not what this video is for. This video is really just talking about, I guess, my 2 cents on the whole Mattel getting the license back. What's interesting about Mattel having the license, they had it for about 15 years, maybe even a little longer. I know they started their comic line in 2005, and it evolved to DC Superheroes, DC Universe Classics, and DC Multiverse. At one point in time, they ditched the 6-inch scale and went with 3.75-inch scale, and I completely checked out at that point. I wanted nothing to do with the scale that small. And eventually they came back with their Multiverse line, and it was really cool. They did some new stuff, new body molds, new sculpts, new articulation, introducing the double jointed elbows, that sort of stuff, but it was a little bit too late. Now a lot of people have the appeal of DC Universe Classics because it is a cookie cutter line. Batman, Superman, The Flash, Green Lantern, they all used exactly the same body. And they all were the exact same size, and people complain about McFarlane's scale issues, and they are definitely there, but Mattel had scale issues as well. They shouldn't be all identical bodies, the exact same size, all lined up, with the same abs, the same, biceps, blah, 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 blah. I love the DC Universe Classics line, but McFarlane was on a whole nother level. At first they had unique bodies, unique sculpts, more plastic, same price point from 10 years before. They did a great job of keeping it cheap, good value, and better quality product. Funny thing is, Mattel had the license for about 15 years, and they kind of squandered it. They got really lazy. They started blaming the fans for not buying enough stuff in their signature line, and they were just canceling stuff. Like I said, honestly, they failed. They were making less and less money. The figures were not doing well, and people were not excited for them anymore. At the very end, with Multiverse, they introduced really, really impressive bodies. The last wave was a really cool Batman wave. They had some stuff that was shown and never released, and it was better quality than what came before. A lot more unique body parts, but there was still a lot of stuff that didn't look as good. I will show some comparisons with some McFarlane and Mattel figures, in case you're curious what I'm talking about. But if you really think that Mattel made better action figures, you are literally delusional. Check a couple out. So like I said, I wanted to check out some comparisons. Here's Mattel's first DC Universe Classics Batman next to McFarlane's first DC Multiverse Batman. Which one do you guys think is better? Much love for this Mattel Batman. I like him a lot. I have used him so much over the years, and he still holds up very nicely. This was McFarlane's first attempt, and it wasn't their best Batman figure, but they did improve. A lot of people don't think McFarlane listened to the fans. Well, they damn sure did. At the beginning, they had a build a Batmobile wave. People didn't like that, and they switched to Build-A-Figures. Which one do you guys like better? I'm curious. I'm honestly kind of torn. I do like the McFarlane one better, but I love this DC Universe Classics Batman. He has a special place in my heart still to this day. I like him a lot. I can totally understand why people might prefer the Mattel version in front of you versus the McFarlane version. But then if you compare this DC Universe Classics Batman to McFarlane's, say, Nightfall Batman or Hush Batman, I don't see how anybody could pick the DC Universe Classics Batman unless they're just super picky about the scale and they only like 6-inch stuff, which there are a lot of people like that out there. How about Mattel's Movie Master Dark Knight Batman versus McFarlane's Dark Knight Batman? Which one do you guys think is better? And I like the Movie Master line. I really liked it a lot. It's not a horrible figure, but they cost almost the same, and it's like 15 years later. The sculpt, the detail, the size, the articulation is so much better on the McFarlane figure. I don't see how you can say the Mattel one is a better release than the McFarlane version, unless you're just a 6-inch supremacist. And I know I'm using maybe kind of harsh words. I collect 6 and 7-inch scale figures. I collect 6-inch scale because that's what Mattel made when I was super into the DC line. And I still love those figures, but I feel like 7-inch is sort of an evolution of what Mattel did. Here's Mattel's Dark Knight Heath Ledger Joker next to McFarlane's. Once again, which one do you guys think is better? McFarlane is much better. How about Mattel's Adam West Batman next to McFarlane's? Look how small, scrawny, and dinky he is compared to McFarlane's. And you might think, well, that's not fair. You should compare him to McFarlane's Batman Classic TV series line. Wrong. Those figures are actually cheaper than the Mattel one. This Mattel guy was $20 well over 10 years ago. The McFarlane one is, I think, $22.99. With inflation, that's pretty much the same price as 10 or 15 years ago. And it is so much better. And it's not without its flaws. The cape is too long. I have some issues with sort of the diaphragm joint. But a lot of people complain how ugly those joints can be. What? You think that's not ugly? And a lot of people complain about the diapers. Guess what? It hides all the articulation underneath. And this one, you have this articulation, which can really, really look hideous at times. So how about their Batfleck? These are a couple versions from Batman vs. Superman. Which one do you think is better? McFarlane actually kind of dropped the ball in there, so they could have done a much better job, but it's still pretty freaking nice. And I guess I'm being kind of a dick by using this one. This is the unmasked one with the really ugly cosplay-looking child costume head on it. Like I said, I'm probably being kind of a dick by using this one. So let's put in the regular version, which still looks considerably inferior to McFarlane's Batfleck. Both the head, the body, the texturing, everything. How about Ray Fisher's Cyborg from Justice League? The detailing on the body is so much better on McFarlane, and like I said, they cost the same. Look at the head sculpts. Are you telling me the Mattel's better? Are you really? And if you think that's bad, look at the Mattel helmet version of Cyborg versus McFarlane's version. Really? You think that Mattel one looks good? And these cost the same. 5 years later. And look how much more you get from the McFarlane one. Not just the sculpt, the paint job, but the amount of plastic and everything. The articulation, it's all better. Look at the Nightmare Batman. Once again, McFarlane is just destroying Mattel with a lot of these releases. Here's Mattel's Henry Cavill Superman next to McFarlane's. And McFarlane could have done a better job with their Superman, but God, they beat Mattel. They beat the shit out of Mattel. Take Batfleck from Justice League. This is the one of the tactical suit. And I really actually like this Mattel figure. But boy, McFarlane is just killing them. Look at this armored Batfleck from Batman vs Superman. My word, I like the Mattel figure. Well, I definitely liked him at the time, but McFarlane has just murdered him. Not even close. And that is not to say that everything Mattel put out was bad. Not at all. I love the DC Universe Classics line. Look at Mattel's Catman next to McFarlane's. Both excellent releases. But McFarlane is still killing it. Still beating Mattel. Beating the hell out of them. And that's not to say Mattel hasn't had some amazing releases. Here's a Build-A-Figure King Shark from Mattel and a Build-A-Figure King Shark from McFarlane. Sure, one's based off the comics, one's based off the movie. They're both really good King Shark figures, but I think I like the Mattel one better. This is one of the rare instances where Mattel wins, even though they're kind of hard to compare as they're different versions. Mattel made a couple of amazing Clayface figures. We have the DC Superheroes version on the left and the Multiverse version on the right. McFarlane Clayface is also really nice, but I'd say I think Mattel beat them. Maybe even with both releases, but definitely with their Multiverse release. And here's McFarlane's 66 Batmobile on the left, next to Mattel's version on the right. Mattel did a much, much better job with this Batmobile. It's actually scaled right for the 6-inch figures. McFarlane's is grossly underscaled. So, McFarlane doesn't win every time, but they win 9 out of 10 times easily. Now, that is not to say that Mattel didn't make some freaking awesome stuff. They sure did. And they did some stuff that was better than McFarlane. But for the most part, 9 out of 10 times, McFarlane beat Mattel, and they beat them pretty freaking bad. The biggest example of what I can think of that Mattel did better would be the 1966 Batmobile. Theirs was so much better than McFarlane's. But that's maybe not a fair comparison, but whatever. It's just quite a downer. I was expecting McFarlane to be making DC figures for at least another 10 years. They're making a shit ton of money. Their stuff's selling out like crazy, and I know a lot of people think they're horrible, they suck, their diapers look bad, the scale's awful. And there's a little bit of truth to all those statements, but Mattel had every bit as many scale issues as McFarlane does. So does Hasbro Marvel Legends, NECA, Diamond Select Toys. Every company has those same kind of issues. DC Direct. So I was just very impressed with what McFarlane did for the most part. I really, really enjoyed the line. Like I said, I've been collecting DC figures for the better part of 20 years, and this is the most fun that I've had with them. They're also very durable. I could take a McFarlane figure, throw it against a wall, and it's not going to break. And really, the same can be said for Mattel. It's the DC Direct stuff that really gave me a lot of those problems. Getting way off topic at this point. So, here are the facts. And I don't have any inside information, but it's officially been announced that Mattel has the Master DC license starting in 2026. What does that mean? Well, we don't know what that means right now. Everyone assumes Mattel is going to get the license and McFarlane's going to lose it, and that's that. But I imagine it's more complicated than that. As it is right now, mass market-wise, we have McFarlane and Spin Master. All we know is Mattel is taking over in 2026, but what are they taking over? Realistically, they're probably taking over the 6 and 7 inch scale sort of action figures. But who knows? Maybe they're taking over the Spin Master stuff, the more kiddie stuff in the smaller scale. That would be fantastic in my eyes, but I fear the worst, which is they're basically going to be going back to their 6 inch scale, or possibly doing a 7 inch scale stuff. They do this Masters of the Universe 7 inch line, which I hear really good things about. I have a couple figures from it, and they're pretty nice quality. Maybe Mattel will do 7 inch stuff and sort of pick up where McFarlane left off. But realistically, I would expect them to do a 6 inch line because it's less plastic, it's going to be cheaper, and Mattel always takes shortcuts. They have CEOs and shareholders that make billions and billions of dollars, and a lot of the money goes to those guys. So they can't give you quite the best value and the best product without charging extra. So what I would expect to happen is, if they're getting the 6-inch scale license, which is probably what I expect, either the quality will go down, or the price will go up, or hell, maybe both. They were charging $20 a figure 5, 6, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. McFarlane started off by charging $20 a figure, crept up to $22. Then they started releasing their collector's line for $30, and didn't seem like it was a good value. And I still kind of mixed feelings on that. I'm happy to get all those characters, and as the collector's line progressed, we got more and more accessories, justifying the price point. Now, it's also possible that Mattel got the Master DC license, and McFarlane can also still produce product. Maybe Mattel makes 6-inch stuff, and McFarlane makes 7-inch stuff. The only facts we know is that Mattel has the license in 2026. Nothing said McFarlane has lost the license. I would personally assume that McFarlane is still negotiating with Warner Brothers. Really, the entire success of this modern company is based around the success of the DC Multiverse line, and I can't imagine he wants to give it up easy. They're making a ton of money for Warner Brothers, for DC, for McFarlane, and it's like, why would they want to change it? Well, money. Money talks. Mattel is a much bigger company than McFarlane, and they have the ability to maybe outbid them and take the license. I don't know what happened. I'll probably never know what happened. Keep in mind, McFarlane still owns DC Direct. They release their animated stuff with the DC Direct banner. They release their page punchers with the DC Direct banner. Some of their deluxe figures are labeled DC Direct. So maybe they'll still be able to release stuff with the DC Direct banner. And hopefully it's not all just animated stuff. Back when Mattel had the original license, we had DC Direct and Mattel both making figures and product at the same time. So maybe that will still happen. We'll have Mattel and DC Direct again, but DC Direct will be in the form of McFarlane toys. I really, really hope something like that is the case. Time will tell. We'll probably have some news in the next few weeks. I hope it's good news. Mattel getting a license is not the worst thing that can happen, but McFarlane losing it, in my eyes, is a horrible thing. There are so many people out there that are burned and miffed about the 7-inch scale, and I do get it. A lot of people want to put their Marvel Legends next to their DC figures, and you know what? That is cool. I really would like to do that as well. But even when DC Universe Classics was out, I didn't feel like they fit in with Marvel Legends. They were a very different sort of style, and even the scale was a little bit different. I always had an issue taking Marvel Legends Civilians and we went DC Universe Classics because they were just so much smaller. It's not just the height either. The overall proportions were just smaller. Now, a lot of people complain about McFarlane's proportions, and, you know, sometimes there are issues. They're too tall, their arms are too long, blah, blah, blah. But Mattel had every bit of the same issues. Not with every figure, and McFarlane most certainly doesn't have that with every figure. They make some freaking gems, and so did Mattel. But Mattel was lazy, they took a lot of shortcuts, and it really all boils down to money. They introduced their DC Universe Classics body in, I don't know, 2007, maybe, the DC Superheroes line, and they were still using it in 2019. Now that is ridiculous. And the main reason that Mattel lost the license, I think it's because they didn't bid on it at one point. The sales were really low. But it was all because the lazy shortcuts they were taking. Still using the same body after 15 years is inexcusable. It really is. I mean, if the body was freaking awesome, maybe, but single jointed elbows, single jointed knees, and still cranking stuff out on that body literally in like 2018. It's madness. They finally decided to kind of get their act in gear and release some really good stuff at the very end. But it was too late. People already checked out. People were already frustrated, not wanting the line, no excitement, no interest. McFarlane had excitement and interest right off the get-go. Now, there are tons of other possibilities. Look at Ninja Turtles line. We have Playmates, the Axon line, NECA. All kind of different companies make Ninja Turtle figures. they don't have one company with the master license at a certain scale. There are numerous companies making 7-inch and 6-inch and 5-inch turtle figures. So maybe something like that will happen. But realistically, that hasn't really been the trend in the past. I would personally kind of feel like Mattel is going to get the license, and they're going to take it from McFarlane, and McFarlane will still be able to make stuff in a very limited capacity. They're probably still going to be able to make their animated stuff, which I would be livid if Multiverse is dead and they only made the animated stuff, because that'll just suck so bad. I'm hoping McFarlane can still make collector's figures, at least in one way, shape, or form. My ideal outcome for me personally would be Mattel has the more kiddie license and McFarlane has the adult collector's license. All of the official news stories I've read are pretty vague. They don't tell you. They just say that Mattel has a Master DC license. That can mean a lot of things. Spin Master has a Master DC license. McFarlane has a Master DC license. I assume Mafex has a Master DC license in one way, shape, or form, but they have a certain price point they have to hit. It's just... we don't know. We don't know what's happening. I do fear the worst, and I absolutely hate the thought of McFarlane stopping making 7-inch DC figures. They are so freaking fun and good. And there is a lot of, I don't know, noise diluting the line. All the Joker Eye stuff, and the black and white stuff, and these repaints and stuff that a lot of people don't want. But their output is just so enormous. I think that was driven by the good success of the line. Even though they're releasing a lot of junk, there's still just as much new stuff and gems coming out as ever before. It's just sort of mixed with a lot of reuse and repaints and that sort of stuff, and it has kind of tainted the brand a little bit. But if you look at everything that came out in 2024, which, oh my god, their output was just insane. For every repaint, or at least for every 2 repaints, there was a gem that came out. Some really, really good stuff. Check out my top 20 McFarlane figures from 2024. It's devastating to think we're not going to get that sort of stuff after 2025. Now, I went back and checked when McFarlane announced they renewed the license for, I think, the 3rd time, and they got it from 2023 through the end of 2025. And that totally aligns with Mattel taking the license in 2026. So, I mean, everything I'm looking at really supports Mattel replacing McFarlane, which is not what I want. I would love to have them both there. Mattel doing 6-inch, McFarlane doing 7-inch, just like Hasbro does 6-inch Marvel, and Diamond Select does 7-inch Marvel. But like I said, I fear the worst. I am extremely curious what all of you guys think. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a hater of Mattel. I'm not a hater of 6-inch figures. But there's a lot of sort of Hasbro supremacists that think everything should match with Hasbro and everything should be, you know, this 1/12 scale, even though Hasbro is not a true 1/12 scale. They're probably more like 1/11 scale, something like that. And I prefer my 6-inch scale figures to be more like 6.5-inch, like Mezco, Mafex, that stuff. I'm not a fan of the really little figures like Figma and Figure Arts. They're just so damn small. They don't even fit in with Marvel Legends. I would love to have somehow a DC Marvel Legends line and a DC Multiverse line at the same time. But none of the companies want competition. Mattel, if they're going to put up all this money to get this line, they're not going to want McFarlane making stuff at the same time. I hope we get an announcement from McFarlane soon, and maybe they can't give us one yet because they're still negotiating to see what they can do. I don't know. I do think there's a glimmer of hope with a DC Direct whole sort of entity being acquired by McFarlane. Maybe they can continue to release stuff like that, but I don't think we're going to see the output that we've been seeing. I don't think we're going to see this huge mass market presence, and that it hurts. It hurts. My favorite line by far, and I'm a little bit biased, but I collect a lot of stuff. I collect Marvel Legends, I collect Diamond Select toys, wrestling figures, SH figure. I mean, almost everything between 6 and 7-inch that is pretty much DC related, and I get other stuff too. So I think I have a very objective way of looking at this, even though I'm leaning toward the McFarlane side. And it's a very dark day for collectors, specifically McFarlane and 7-inch collectors. So what do you guys think? Do you want Mattel to get the license back? Do you want them to continue where McFarlane left off and do 7-inch scale figures? Do you want to see 6-inch scale figures? Do you want to see Mattel take the old DC Universe Classics body that was introduced in like 2007 in the DC Superheroes line, dust it off, and put it back on the assembly and make more? I mean, I'm sure they're not. That's not what they're going to do. I remember a while back, and I don't remember the guy's name, but there was a sculptor that worked for Mattel, and he was in the wrestling side of things, and he pitched a really nice-looking Batman figure. It had butterfly joints, unmasked head, all kind of accessories. The body, the articulation looked fantastic. And I saw an interview with this guy, and he said Mattel literally told him, no thanks, we're good, we don't want to do that. We're going to continue what we're doing. That is why they lost the license. Mattel's stock has been going down year after year after year. Same with Hasbro. McFarlane is on the rise. I remember watching Todd McFarlane say numerous times that he owns his own company. He doesn't have to appease the shareholders. He doesn't have to give them all this money. If he wants to make a figure that's a little bit bigger and has more plastic and he doesn't make quite as much profit, he can do that because he doesn't answer to anybody. Mattel has to answer to a shit ton of people. They have to give tons of money to all these top-heavy people in the company. That's just corporate America. McFarlane is structured a little bit differently and allowed them more freedom. Although the good stuff McFarlane was known for at the beginning, brand new sculpts, very little reuse, it did kind of go away over time. They reuse a lot of the same body, a lot of stuff is repainted and could be a lot better, but I still have much love for them. And a lot of people are like, oh, the line is just Batman and Superman, Batman and Superman. It's a lot of Batman and Superman, but they have really expanded the character selection in the last couple of years. They're making all kind of obscure cuts, and I was really liking where the line was heading. Hopefully, it will continue, and we'll continue to get that sort of stuff. But realistically, I'm just going to guess that Mattel is going to push McFarlane out the way, and it saddens me. So this is dHunter. Let me know what you guys think about the situation. Were you guys sad when Mattel lost the line? Are you still sad that Mattel lost the line? Do you think Mattel made better figures than McFarlane? Because if you do, I truly don't know what you're looking at. And I love the DC Universe Classics, but when you put them next to a McFarlane toy, it's pretty obvious which one looks better and is a better value. Todd McFarlane changed the game way back in the day by sort of introducing 6-inch scale figures in the Spawn line. He almost created the 6-inch scale, and then other companies followed suit. He didn't create the 7-inch scale, but he's really sort of put it back on the map as far as mainstream comic stuff. I actually kind of thought McFarlane would eventually get the Marvel license and do 7-inch Marvel figures because he was just very successful. And I know he always wanted the big three, DC, Star Wars, and Marvel. And he has DC, and I think he's done a pretty good job. I have my share of complaints. And if it ends and we have, 10 more months of McFarlane toys, there's so much they didn't get to that I want. They haven't finished the Batmobile collection, and we have the Justice League Batmobile on the leak list, but we still need the Batman vs. Superman Batmobile, the 66 Batmobile, and the Batman Batmobile, and then I would be very happy with the vehicles. There's all kind of stuff on the leaked list. We still need to get Batman Returns figures. There's just so much I want to see them do. I would have loved to have seen a crowdfunding Batcave or, a HasLab type thing like that. It's just unfortunate. I think that Mattel is going to squeeze every penny they can out of us. I wouldn't be surprised if their figures start off $25 for a basic figure or even $30. Especially if they're going to try to match the quality McFarlane did. They're going to have to charge extra. It's just the way it is. Their company is very different than McFarlane, and they have to appease so many people, and so many people are going to take their chunk of the change, the chunk of the pie, and it just limits what they can do without charging an arm and a leg. I mean, look at Hasbro. They're charging $50 for these deluxe 6-inch scale Marvel Legends, and they're nice, but $50? Are you kidding me? I don't know, I just was very pleased with the way things are going, and it seems like we're going to completely backslide here. But it is within the realm of possibilities. The Mattel has got their head out of their ass, and they have seen the mistakes in the past. I'm sure there are different people running their toy department, or the boys' toys, or action figures, or the DC section, whatever exactly it works. Maybe they know their past mistakes, and they're going to completely step up their game. They had some really nice figures at the end there. So it's possible. What do you think? What do you want to see happen? Personally, I want to see Mattel make figures and McFarlane both make figures, but that may not be the world we live in. So drop me a line in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you absolutely hate McFarlane. Let me know if you love McFarlane. Let me know if you can see my points with some of those comparisons I showed you. You literally cannot tell me that the Mattel figures look better than McFarlane figures. Even at the end, they still didn't look better. Like that Red Hood pales in comparison to McFarlane's Red Hood. There's Cyborg, other stuff like that, like Batfleck. And even though McFarlane didn't maybe make the best Batfleck for Batman Superman, it's way better than Mattel's. Their armored one from Batman Superman is amazing, especially compared to Mattel's. So there's some really good stuff out there from both companies, but I think McFarlane, when they hit hard, they really hit a home run, and Mattel, when they hit hard, it was just kind of more of the same. So I imagine we'll hear a lot of news in the next coming weeks, and I look forward to and sort of dread what we're going to find out. I have a feeling it's not going to be what I hope for. We'll see. So, drop in the comments. Let me know how you feel. I'm curious about everyone's opinion. I respect the people that hate McFarlane. I respect people that love Mattel, but realistically, you cannot look at some of these figures next to each other and tell me, yeah, Mattel did a better figure, because 98% of the time, that is not the case. There's a few times that Mattel did beat McFarlane, but only a select few. So this is dHunter. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure videos from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is dHunter. Thank you for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.